Well, hello. Today we're continuing our modeling journey, but we're going to do something a little different with our incense today. This is an incense waterfall, and the challenge with these waterfalls is there cannot be any kind of breeze or movement in the air. So here in the shop, it is winter time. We do have the furnace running, so a little bit of airflow is enough to distort things a little bit. But this will just help. See, even my breath there was enough to move it, but this will help us relax. And well, hello friends, and welcome back as we continue our modeling journey. Again, I'm sorry about the noise behind me. It's a very cold winter's day here in the shop, and so our furnace is running to try and keep things warm. I'm going to look at some of the colors that we're going to be using today as part of our modeling journey today and in the next few days. Again, these are all Tamiya acrylic paints. Most of them are flat. This is our first color. This is the XF60, dark yellow. The F indicates that it is a flat finish. So again, XF60, dark yellow. We're using that as the base color for the Tiger tank, and great color to work with. For the Sturmgeschütz, the self-propelled gun, we're using XF63. And again, that is a flat paint. This is German gray. And I don't know if many Stugs were painted in this from the factory, but a lot of early Panzers were painted German gray. And then we might try doing some sort of like a whitewash over top of that. Also in the shop today, we're going to use our good friend Flat Black. That's XF1. XF1 is a fantastic paint. We'll be using this for the rubber coatings that go around the wheels, and that'll be a great one for other parts that need a nice flat black color. And then last but not least, at least for the next couple of chapters, is gunmetal. This is X10. It is not a flat finish because it is a metallic finish. That's why it is X, and it is X10. And again, of course, we'll be using a little bit later in the program some Testors model cement, but most of what we're working on at the moment is initial prep. And some of that initial prep has included painting some flat yellow or dark yellow onto the wheels. Here we can see the various wheels for the Tiger tank, and we've started painting them on both sides, just a single coat. Probably going to take 2 or 3 coats, and then very, very carefully using a brush, we're going to start to apply the flat black to the outside edges to give that rubber coating that they would have had on those road wheels. So still quite a bit of painting to do before we even start cutting pieces off. We're going to paint them initially on the sprues, and then eventually we'll take them off the sprues, sand them, the edges where they connect, and then touch them up and get them all ready for initial assembly. So those are the wheels for the Tiger. Now if we look at the wheels for the Sturmgeschütz, you can see we're starting to apply that German gray. These wheels are quite a bit smaller. I believe both kits are 1:35 scale, so they're within proportion to each other. So there's our Stug wheels, and the chassis of the Stugs were actually from the Panzer III and IV, and as this is a Sturmgeschütz 4, this is the wheels that would have come from a Panzer Mark IV in comparison to the wheels on the Tiger, so you can see the differences there. So let's dive in and let's do some painting. Okay, so here we are on our suitable work surface. Again, we've got our good friend dark yellow. I'm going to give that paint a good shake. It's been about a week since we've been out here in the shop. So we're going to give that paint a good shake. And then we'll just carefully take off the lid. Sometimes they can be a little bit stuck. And we'll set that down on the table. And we're going to take this brush right here, which is a size 8. And we're going to start applying a second coat of paint. Now when you're applying the paint, again, you just want to dip it ever so slightly into the paint. You don't want too much paint. Wipe off the excess. And then we just very carefully start to apply the paint in a soft, circular motion. Trying not to run the brush over the same area too many times because it'll start to pull up the paint. Again, just dip it in the paint and go to our next wheel. One little continuous motion around the outside. Continuous circle motion around the outside, just gently caressing the paint onto the surface. Again, this is a tank, this is a war machine, so we're not looking for a showroom finish. Again, dip the paint and apply one smooth circle around the outside edge. Just like that. Got to be careful that you don't get too much buildup on around the rim. Just try to smooth that out a little bit. You want to try and put enough paint to give it a good coating, but not so much that it pools up and bubbles up. And although we're using a brush, the great thing about the Tamiya paint is it doesn't leave a lot of brush strokes. Older model paints, especially before they went to acrylics, you always got a lot of brush strokes. There was a British company that made a paint called Humbrol. I think they might have had a relationship with Airfix, and if you know a little bit about models, you probably heard of Airfix. But Airfix, Humbrol paints used to come together, but they were oil-based. And they were like little paint cans, little plastic lids, little metal tins. But of course, they were oil-based paints. So you had to use thinners. And there are some odors, of course, associated with even these paints. And of course, the glue, you want to be working in a very well-ventilated area. That way you're not inhaling too much in the way of fumes, although today in the shop we've got the incense going, and maybe that's not the best thing, but anyway, that's okay. You know, I love being out here in the shop, nice and peaceful. I can have my incense without making the house all smelly, making the family complain. Probably see my puppy there in the background, Gracie. She's a Great Dane. She's hanging out with me in the shop today. And here we are. We're just taking our brush and applying a nice little bit of paint to the wheels here. So we'll keep going here, get our second coat on, and then we'll jump over to the wheels for the Stug. Okay, friends, so we finished our bit of painting there with the dark yellow on the Tiger. Now we've got our XF63, and we're going to put a little bit of paint here on these Stug wheels. You know, sometimes people have said to me, you know, isn't this very tedious? Isn't it very boring? But it's very serene and peaceful. I said this in my previous videos, but when you're here painting these models, we're going to use a smaller brush this time, by the way. This is a number 2 shader brush, much thinner and smaller. Probably need some newer brushes. You see the bristles they've had a lot of work and they're a bit frayed out. If you're doing something really precise, then you'd want a brush that's in better shape than that. But for this, we're just applying some paint liberally. It's okay. But going back to what I was saying, you know, it's very relaxing. You know, as you're sitting here dipping the brush in the paint and gently caressing the little parts and getting them all painted up. all your troubles melt away. The world around you disappears. And in that moment, it's just you and the brush and the thing that you're painting. And you're slowly creating this piece of history. Now that our noisy furnace friend is shut off, I've just got the gentle hum of the fluorescent lights above me. I live in a very small village, so it's very, very quiet. No sound of traffic, no sound of people. Puppy she's laying down on her blanket over there on her bed. She's got a little mattress there she lays on in the garage with me when I'm out here. And we're just painting away. With a lot of model kits, the early stages, there's a lot of prep. And in this case, that prep is just painting parts, getting them ready to start to assemble. But in our next chapter, we'll be starting to snip some pieces off. We'll be starting to sand some things together, or sand some things clean, I should say, and then gluing some stuff together, starting some construction. But in those initial stages, when you're building the kit, there is quite a bit of painting. But again, the joy of this is it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need a showroom finish. This is not a car or an airplane or anything like that where it's got to look really good. I mean, I guess if it was a warplane, it would probably be okay, but a little more forgiving. But with these tanks, you want to take pride in what you're doing. And the more you make them, the better you'll get. But they're just for you to see and enjoy. And chances are any little imperfections that you might know exist on the kit, when it's finished, anybody else you show, any friends or family that take a look at it, they wouldn't even see it. They wouldn't even know. They would see a really interesting and beautiful piece of art that somebody handcrafted and built. And you learn a lot about the history. You learn to appreciate the technology that went into these things that you're building. I mean, these are tanks that were, in some cases, designed in the 1930s and built throughout the 40s, and state of the art at the time, but old-fashioned by today's standards. But when you build it like this and you see all the parts that go into it and the detail, you really learn to appreciate the engineering that went into making something like this. Well, friends, I think that'll do it for today. Just a little more gentle brushing going on here, applying a little more paint. But I think in our next chapter, we'll fast forward to when we're ready to start doing some actual building together. So for now, stay safe, give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.